Welcome to Open Arms, an honest conversation about firearms. Hey everyone, I'm your host Brian Lockerman, and the more events that the Open Arm teams attend, the more great people we meet. And today in the studio, I have one of those people with me. I have Jennifer Kennedy. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Brian. So great to be here. Nice to be with you.
Well, thank you. Now we have history. The funny thing
We
is,
do. It's so interesting.
I know. I met Jennifer years ago. Now, I met her in an area, California, which kind of leans far left.
Kinda. Totally does.
I know. And when I met Jennifer and her family, which, by the way, you and your family are the nicest people in the world.
Oh,
I'll tell
thank
that
you.
right now. You are. You're amazing. When I met them, though, I always thought to myself that that's the way you leaned as well. And we weren't back then. We weren't as vocal as we are now, right?
Well, and of course, we weren't in the context where we were in, which of course was assisted living for my elderly parent.
Exactly.
Nobody's really talking politics. Around
You're right.
there.
You're right. You're absolutely right about that.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, about 2 weeks ago, we're at this event in Echo Park, which is fantastic Republican gathering, and there she was. I'm like, Jennifer, no way, you're one of us. It was such a pleasure.
Yes, absolutely fortuitous, serendipitous that
Oh
we
my
met
God,
again.
I loved it because again, I loved you and your family.
Oh,
I
so
really
nice.
did. And again, I would not dislike you if you were on the left.
No, but you know what? I think there's a vibe actually
Mhm.
with conservatives or people who share the same values. The way you hold yourself, the things you talk about,
Yes.
the manner you address people. I think that comes across. And so
That-
maybe you didn't know that I was a silent conservative, but
That's
maybe it
correct.
came through.
Now, what I hear, you're doing a lot of wonderful things these days.
I'm trying.
Well,
I'm trying.
Well, why don't you share some of that with us?
Well, of course, you know probably that I'm an attorney.
Yes.
And so my background is civil litigation. I always say not criminal. And because of that work as an attorney, I'm also a health freedom activist. And by health freedom activist, I mean I'm into vaccine education
Nice.
and people's right to bodily autonomy and people's right to understand what is being asked of them when things like COVID shots come along and COVID mandates. And I've been a health freedom activist since back in 2015, 2016, and that's when California lost what's called our personal beliefs exemption
Mhm.
for vaccinations on the childhood shot schedule. And that's a long-standing right in virtually every state in this nation, a personal beliefs exemption. And here in California, we lost it because of Senator Richard Pan and a fake measles outbreak that he wanted to turn into a good reason to take it away. And so that's the background of literally overnight in 2016, I realized that personal beliefs exemption was going away. And my own children, who for whatever reasons, that's a whole nother story, are partially vaxxed. And it's because I educated myself about vaccines before giving birth. And I decided I'm not doing some of those and I'm going to delay others or decline others outright.
Yes.
Then, when I learned we were losing the personal beliefs exemption, I became a health freedom activist overnight.
Wow.
So I've been in that space for a long time, and then now jump ahead to COVID
Okay.
and the pandemic
Yes.
and the government response. And what we saw everywhere was government, employment, higher education, and now elementary education coming out with mandates.
Yes.
Totally offensive to
Uh-huh.
personal liberty, totally scary to me, not only as a parent, but a health freedom activist, because we were predicting this back in 2016 when literally no one was noticing. The small group of affected people, the affected moms, the crunchy granolas at the time that we called ourselves,
Yeah.
it was not in the mainstream. People
Mhm.
were not paying attention. When SB 277 went into effect and kept kids out of school because they were not up to date on the shot schedule, no one really noticed. That was 30,000 kids across California who were now sitting out of school, whether it was starting kindergarten or seventh grade or whatever.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
And we were beating the drums, and nobody but us was really paying
Mhm.
attention at that time. That's where this grassroots activism began and really has moved into legislation now.
Nice. Nice.
Mhm.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, with you doing this in the area you're in, were you getting a lot of flack?
Oh, yeah.
I
I
can
mean,
imagine.
you don't get a lot of good reception. That's the
Exactly.
problem.
Mhm.
But I was super vocal about it. And my whole goal at the time of SB 77 was to tell parents there's this thing called a personal beliefs exemption. And if you don't have one now, you're going to want one in the future, and you'd better file it. Otherwise, you're going to be out of luck.
There you go.
And some people listened and some people didn't. So, okay, so that's just the background of health freedom. And then that has morphed into awareness of these COVID mandates and wanting to stop them. And that's where I've been watching the litigation that has sprung up in California in particular, because, as people across the nation will know, Los Angeles Unified and San Diego Unified tried, tried to come out with a vax mandate for kids.
Mm.
And the point of those mandates was to demand that the children got the COVID shot or else they would be kicked out of school mid-semester. This is
Wow.
back in 2021. And so the minute those lawsuits began, my radar goes up. As an attorney,
Yeah.
I'm looking at them, I'm reading them, I'm understanding what the causes of action are and what's happening in the courts. And this was a really panicky time
Oh, yeah.
for the LA parents, for
Big
sure.
time.
It was, because in San Diego, they rolled out a mandate and it was instantly challenged, and that thing never went into effect. No children in San Diego were ever barred from school. Not true here in Los Angeles. They were barred from school, or they were going to be. So that mandate was rolling on through fall of 2021. And all we had on campuses was fear and harassment and bullying and
Yep.
shaming. All these adults
Yep.
doing the same behavior that every bit of like anti-bullying curriculum was supposed to prevent. They were being the bullies.
Mm-hmm.
So parents didn't know what was going on. They desperately wanted to see what was happening in these lawsuits. And I came onto social media to kind of explain it, translate the legalese, tell them what's happening, and say there was a lot of myth going around. Did they win? Did something win? Did it lose? What's happening? And that's how I got into kind of that litigation area where I was volunteering pro bono to help some of these attorneys in their cases, because
Wow.
very few attorneys were willing to stand up and
Yeah.
do this work.
Exactly. So you've been pretty much doing it on your own, blood, sweat, and tears, your own dime, really.
Absolutely my own dime. Tell my husband. He'll tell you. Yes, because why? The people suing are going to be nonprofits, or they're going to be individuals. Nobody has that kind of money,
There you go.
right?
This is what I keep telling everyone. You can do this. It doesn't take money. It just takes a little bit of effort, on your
Well,
part.
it does take money, and it takes a lot of
Well-
effort. And that, sadly, that's the problem, why we had so few attorneys willing to, number one, stick their necks out in a really uncomfortable area where you're being viewed as anti-vax. You are a baby, a granny killer. You want
Yeah,
grandma to
yeah,
die
yeah,
in the
yeah.
hospital, all that business. Or you have the audacity to question these vaccines, why these are miracles. That was a tough thing for many people to associate with. And what you would hear a lot is, well, I would do it, but my firm, they wouldn't go along with it. And so very small number of attorneys willing to get in that fight.
Oh, yeah. And it's the same way in the entertainment industry. Everybody has to be tight-lipped.
Oh,
They're going
yeah.
to lose their job.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of people that want to come on my show, but they're like, I just can't. I'll lose my job.
Yes.
I believe me, Brian. I believe in what you guys are doing here. It's amazing. But for me to come on the show, I could be jeopardizing my job. It's stupid.
It's stupid, but it's so true. I have
It
a lot of
is.
friends in the industry, and it is absolutely a don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
Don't breathe a word of your political leanings, and certainly don't say anything against that vaccine, because it's bad news. And I know a lot of people who in entertainment who did lose their jobs because they stood firm and said, I'm not
Yeah.
taking it.
Oh, I know.
I'm not taking that experimental jab with the spike protein. I don't need a spike protein factory, and they got fired. This is in every industry. Every industry.
Even the LAPD,
Oh
correct?
my gosh, that's right. Of course, and people need to know that in the city of Los Angeles, they came out with their own mandate, the city's mandate. The district came out with its own mandate, the separate LAUSD mandate, and under that mandate, they fired LAPD officers, firefighters, and employees in every department.
See,
of course.
I had a girl on my show not too long ago. She was in the Air Force. She was doing a 6-year term, okay? And she was just on fire. That was her passion, her love. She was actually fighting for our country.
Serving our country.
Serving our country.
Yeah.
She's actually in it. And then the mandate came out.
Mhm.
and they discharged her
I,
after 5 years.
The treatment of our troops,
Oh,
now we all know that the military, they are the primary guinea pigs. They've been vaccinated
yeah.
like crazy
Hmm.
as a condition of employment. For this is not new to them, but this particular vaccine demanding that people have this in order to stay in the military, and then this discharging of our troops,
Oh, I know.
it's reprehensible.
It
Reprehensible.
is horrible.
Which
It
is
really
the same with our police officers and fire.
Hmm.
These are our heroes
I know it.
who were working through the pandemic long before there was Operation Warp Speed, long before there was any
Yep.
vaccine. And we had all the videos thanking everyone, our public servants, for saving everyone.
Yeah.
Then the minute that thing shows up, and you are now the villain.
Uh-huh.
And you have to be terminated. And people need to realize that mandate, the city mandate in Los Angeles, it's still going on
Yeah, I know.
to
know.
this day. And in fact, what happens with the LAPD and the firefighters is when you get this termination direction or this notion that you're going to be terminated, they put you through this internal administrative procedure called the Board of Rights. So you're basically having a hearing, but it's not in court. It's within the people in your department, like the police department, fire department. And so these are not attorneys. These are not judges. This is not a judicial setting. And yet they're hearing evidence and witnesses, and they're coming up with a decision. So
Yeah.
just this week, we had another firefighter who was on trial in his Board of Rights. And the great news for him, this is Tim Handsome, he was not terminated.
Oh, good.
They found 2-1. There were 3 judges, quote judges, on this panel. And they found that he should be suspended for 4 months without pay, but given time served, and he gets to keep his job.
Well, that's good.
That's fantastic
Yeah.
for him. But these are the same facts as the other 2 firefighters before him who were terminated.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Horrible.
of inconsistency going on over there, and there's a lot. And again, it's so offensive that these men, these police officers and firefighters who literally save our lives, who put their
Yes.
lives
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
line for us, they're being terminated just willy-nilly.
Yeah. It's awful to see that. It really is.
As we know, for a shot that doesn't do anything.
I know.
You know, listen, from the beginning, I knew it wasn't going to do anything. I will say that. But a lot of the leaders and the government and everybody else, they wanted to believe it did something. Even Police Chief Michael Moore came out last November on a podcast, actually. The police union has its own podcast. He admitted on camera on the podcast that we'd kind of hoped that the shot would prevent infection or stop the transmission, but it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
He admitted that.
There you go.
Yeah.
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 That's it. That's it in a nutshell right there.
Mhm.
Well, very good. So, I mean, you're still pursuing all that. You're still involved in all this. It's still happening.
I am. I'm often down at City Council trying to remind the City Council to stop that mandate. And then following the litigation, interestingly, in San Diego, they succeeded in suing and then achieving a settlement that the mandate would come down and the city would pay the attorney's fees for. Now, that's a different firm, right? And guess what the difference is in San Diego to here? In San Diego, they had the cooperation and the support of police and fire. Leadership.
Gotcha.
The unions were on board. They had their backs of their members. They said, we are absolutely doing our jobs as unions, and we're going to protect you guys. All of you men and women serving, we got your back. And so they cooperated, and that's a force to be reckoned with. When you have those unions against the city, there's some leverage there.
Oh, big time.
Not true in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It is a shame.
That's too bad.
It is.
Wow.
So another thing that I have done as part of all of these mandates, and we watched them last session in our legislature. I'm now a legislative watcher ever since SB 277. What we saw was a lot of COVID legislation, bills coming out of Sacramento like crazy, all relating to COVID stuff. And that was a massive fight to push back on those, because if you remember, one of those was the employee vaccination law.
Oh, yeah.
This was going to require employees to be vaccinated and employers to become the vax police. We beat that one. Another one was Senator Pan, who took away SB 277. He wanted to mandate the COVID vax for kids. That was SB 871. He pulled that That one, we fought it. There was pushback. He pulled that, so that didn't happen. But they got away with a lot of stuff. They came in with the vaccine registry, where now the state of California has this vaccine registry, and your vaccination status of any vaccination is now going to be reported to the state and available to third parties. Massive intrusion of
Oh
privacy.
man, it's just
Yeah.
it's like the thing they released with everybody having a CCW in California.
No, exactly.
what was
like,
up with
oops,
that?
we let all the data go
Yeah.
of who has the shot or not.
Exactly.
The big win in the last legislative session was SB 866. And that was Senator Scott Wiener's bill attempting to let 12-year-olds consent on their own to all vaccinations, every kind. And this is consistent with what Senator Scott Wiener does, which is these incremental bills designed to lower the age of consent for minors in California for pretty much almost everything.
Yeah.
And the way he writes his bills is you parents get to keep your kids till they're about 12. And after that, they're on their own. They get to make their own decisions. That's what we're fighting now. Some horrible Scott Wiener bills right now that need people's attention.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, where can people find this
Ah.
out there and, be able to support this?
Absolutely. Okay, here's a great organization. One of the
Okay.
organizations I work with is attorney Nicole Pearson, and her group is called Facts, Law, Truth, Justice. They are on every possible social as Facts, Law, Truth, Justice. You'll find them. A lot of the calls to action are on Instagram. Nicole does these great lives all the time. She's a fantastic resource for legislation happening right now. Another great group up in the Capitol is Freedom Angels.
Okay.
Freedom Angels became Freedom Angels around at the time of 276. That's what took away our medical exemption. We didn't even talk about that. So Freedom Angels, same thing. Social media, Freedom Angels on everything. And that's Tara Thornton and Denise Aguilar.
Okay.
And they are ladies who live up in the northern part of the state, and they are great grassroots activists.
Awesome. I suggest everybody go out there, find them, support, follow them seriously, because this is a great cause. This really is.
Absolutely. Another really great group that emerged from the pandemic is PERK, and that's PERK, Protection of the Educational Rights of Kids. And that's a great advocacy group, and they have
Okay.
fantastic graphics and information to empower you to understand what's going on and, pardon me while I turn off this phone, what's going on and how to fight it. Because years ago, the fight was we were rallying, we were on the,
Yeah.
the grass at
Yeah.
the Sacramento, but we learned that it's not just rallying and signs that makes the difference. It's actually engaging with our legislators.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing now is really having the conversation. We're showing them we're not crazy people waving signs. We are intelligent, educated adults, and we see what you are doing.
See-
And we are going to tell you why it's wrong, and we're going to bring more people with us.
It's such a great thing to hear this, because I always thought I was so alone. in this,
Alone,
right? I mean, everybody did.
Yeah.
And now people are starting to come out.
Yes.
People are starting to be more vocal about it,
Mhm.
and they're actually doing things like you're doing to try to stop this madness.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful to see that. I appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm glad, our state and our government and the feeling that we have that this state is so blue. It's just so blue. There's nothing you can do. That's not really true.
I agree.
But you know what it takes? People talking.
It does.
It does. It takes people coming out
100%.
and saying how they feel and expressing, because more than ever, really now more than ever, with our kids in the mix and our kids being threatened by legislation, we have to say something. So I want to talk to you about two of the really horrible bills that I'm fighting right now.
Okay.
Because next week, on the 13th, on Wednesday, there's going to be a hearing of one of them. There was two. Okay, so let's talk about them. One of them is AB 665. The other is AB 957. Of course, that's Assembly bill. These are bills that originated in the Assembly. They've already passed off the Assembly floor. They are halfway to law.
Uh-oh.
They are now in the state Senate, but now is where we are getting the traction, because they shoved those things through so fast, while much of the activism was focused on AB 659, which was going to mandate the HPV shot. We successfully pulled that mandate language out. A very watered down 659 is still floating out there. It still needs opposition. And I'll just tell you, because that law wants to direct schools, high schools, and colleges to send out a letter to all incoming 8th graders and college students that the HPV vaccine is expected. of them expected in the state of California, which is crazy because we don't have laws that tell people about something we would like you to do.
Yeah,
There should be some
Yeah.
enforceability. Anyway, that's extremely misleading. Schools are already telling people and parents that it's mandated. I got to tell you right now, the HPV shot is not mandated in the state of California. You do not have to have it. Your child doesn't have to have it to go to school. Hold on to that. Believe me, because that's the truth.
That's good to know. That is.
The other bad bill right now that is absolutely horrific. And in fact, these are the two worst parent bills to come down the pike since SB 277, taking away our rights to direct our children's receipt of vaccines or not. That was horrific and awful. These are even worse. The first one is AB 957. That's going to be heard next Wednesday. I'll be up there at the hearing at the Capitol on the 13th at 1 o'clock. And AB 957 is a horrible overreach into parents' rights. And here's what it's doing. It's putting law into our family code that tells family court judges that affirmation of a child's gender transition is always in the best interest of a child. Always. And here's what they just did. That was the language of the bill 24 hours ago. That when you're in the family court and you're looking at custody decisions or visitation decisions, the judges have a handful of factors they need to look at. And there's a statute that tells the judges what factors they need to look at. It's Family Code 3011. And it says, judges, when you're making these custody decisions, visitation determinations, and you're looking at these parents, you need to look at a couple of things. Is there any drug or alcohol abuse going on with a parent? Is the parent spending time with the child? Let's look at the amount of time that they're looking at. Is there any abuse of parent by children or even people in the ex's family? These are the factors that tell the judges these are what you need to look for. And beyond those, you're supposed to consider the health, safety, and welfare of the child. It's an umbrella that we tell these courts. Other than that, it's the judge using his or her own discretion to look at the people and parties in front of him and look at the facts and make determinations. AB 957 wants to put into that family code that the notion that affirmation of a child's gender identity is part of the health, safety, and welfare of a child. Affirmation. What is that going to do? That has now elevated affirmation of child gender transition, child sex change, call it what it is. They've elevated that to the health and safety of a child. That's going to allow them in the future to say that if you don't affirm this crazy trans agenda, you're unsafe and we're going to take your child.
That makes my blood boil.
I know.
It really does.
It gives me chills, frankly, as a parent.
When you were just telling me this right now, you're right. I seriously, I got prickly heat on my body.
It is. This is one of the most scary ones, and this is incremental. This is just the family code, right? They also were trying to amend the civil code, Code of Civil Procedure, which regarding name changes of children. Here's another bill right now. The name change, which is AB 223, and that says that an adult who goes into, who seeks a name and gender marker change for a minor child gets to seal those records. Those are usually public records. You can look them up on it's not easy, but they're public records. The law that the Democrats are putting out there, co-sponsored by Senator Wiener, is, well, we're going to seal those. So, and you're going to favor the parent. If there's an objecting parent who doesn't want the child's name changed on birth certificate, doesn't want the child's birth sex changed on that birth certificate, there's an objecting parent, you're going to favor the affirming parent.
What is going on here?
It's an agenda. It's a plan. These are all dovetailing. So I told you about 957. That's forced affirmation in the family courts. That's going to take your child. That's equating affirmation to health and safety. You're going to seal the name change records of a minor. How are you going to find that child later? Yeah. If someone is successful in, let's say you're an out-of-state parent or whatever, if the ex is successful in changing the name and gender marker of their child, where is your child? How is that child locatable? Here's the next really awful bill, AB 665. AB 665 is a shell game extraordinaire. And this is what it will do. It's going to allow children 12 years old, again, to consent to leave their home and check themselves into what's called residential shelter, a group home, maybe across town, down the street, without their parents' knowledge or consent. That's what it does.
This is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And because the agenda is they're out there. The author of this bill is Assemblywoman Wendy Carrillo. She's right here in Los Angeles. Her office is on Sunset Boulevard. They are telling people that this is an income equity thing, that this is about poor kids who don't get mental health counseling versus rich kids who do get mental health counseling without parental knowledge. Because, did you know, Brian, in the state of California right now, there is a law that allows 12-year-old children to consent to mental health counseling without parental consent. So, right? That's already the state of the law. A kid can go to school. Maybe they have one of those wellness centers at the school. They can ask to speak to a therapist, some random adult that the parent doesn't know. They can go and have counseling every day, 5 days a week, all year long, and their parent is never notified. That's already state law. We have another state law, and that's with no parental consent, no nothing. Then here's the other older state law, Family Code 6924. This is a 1979 law, and here's what it did back then. It allowed children 12 and older to consent to two things, mental health counseling and residential shelter. But these are kids who were in danger. In Family Code 6924, it says, we're going to invade your parental rights if that child is in danger and the child needs these things, residential shelter or counseling. Because why? Because there's danger to the child, such as the kid's suicidal. The kid is going to hurt him or herself and others, one danger, or the child is in danger at home. There's abuse or incest, or there's allegations of some type of abuse. That's the time that a child will be allowed to consent, to self-consent to both counseling and residential shelter. We call those the danger guardrails, okay?
When do we decide that 12-year-olds were adults?
I'm telling you,
Right?
this has been, when we look at the progression of laws, that's what our Democrat supermajority wants us to believe. But get this, of course, you're 12. No, you can't pick your bedtime. No, you cannot pick, everything you want to do in your life. You can't go get a tattoo or buy cigarettes. But hey, why don't you just pick your gender and go to that group home down the street?
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's mind-blowing.
It is.
It really is.
And that's why if 665 gets in place, here's the shell game that they're playing. That statute I told you about with the danger guardrails, where a child can consent but on their own, no parent notice, but only if that danger exists. That's the statute that Medi-Cal benefits are available to pay for those services, right? You got either counseling provided or you have residential shelter provided, and children who have Medi-Cal, you can bill Medi-Cal for that.
Wow.
Which is okay, fine. They're gonna enact that. That's great. Move over to that other statute I told you about, which is the one where 12-year-olds can consent to counseling just because, no parental notice. That Medi-Cal doesn't pay for. Why? Because when this was enacted back in 2010, Obama, recession, money crisis, for whatever reason, again, this is party lines. The Democrats at that time did not enable Medi-Cal benefits to pay for what I call the just because counseling.
Yeah.
They didn't. Okay, so that's the state of the law right now. And this is why they're making this really disingenuous argument that poor kids have to wait till they're in danger before they can use insurance benefits to obtain counseling. Rich kids get to just do it because. And they're saying poor versus rich. So they're saying, let's go back into this code, the one about the poor kids, and let's change it so that over here where they already get the Medi-Cal benefits, now they can do the just because counseling.
Let me ask you this. I know you have a radio show too. You do,
I have a
correct?
segment. I do a segment
You
on
do a
Saturday
segment.
nights.
Where can we find that?
Oh, thank you. It's AM 870, The Answer. It's the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club radio program, Saturday
nice.
nights from 8 to 10.
Now, do you discuss topics like this? where you-
Totally.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
8:45. I talk about law and legislation, and right these days I call it the Capitol Watch. I'm the legal eagle, and we talk about the laws coming out and how people can fight them.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You ever talk about the Second Amendment or any other amendments, anything like that? that?
We certainly do.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, what I understand is you're looking to possibly purchase a firearm and take some safety classes.
I
Is that
am.
correct?
I am. I think it's really important that we have smart gun ownership.
There it is.
Absolutely.
That's
And
it.
I think, you know, the pandemic changed everything.
It did.
It really did. The world changed. To
Changed
me.
dramatically.
It did. And personal safety and the safety of our homes became even more important.
100%.
And I thought, I've been thinking about it for years, and I finally thought I'm going to do it. There's a sale over at Turner's, and
There you go.
I'm gonna do it. But I want to take some classes, of course.
Of course, that's what my show is all about, Open Arms. I want to just stress that gun safety is so important. In fact, I've been getting a lot of great emails sent to me about what's going on here with the podcast, the show, and one email just hit the nail on the head. You'll probably see an Instagram video. I read it. It was fantastic, and I said to myself, "I did it. I did it." And we don't even have our show on the air right now.
What was the email? We gotta know.
It's great.
Are you gonna save it?
I'm going to save it because I'm going to save it for later dates because I want people to hear it for the first time like that. But it just seriously, I got choked up because that is what I set out to do, and it's working. And I'm like, that's it. We did it.
That's what we
And
need.
and we're supporting the Second Amendment too in a big way. I mean, without our amendments, we have nothing.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
And that's
wait
why
a-
it was the second one, right?
Wait. Here's one for you. But we're going to have the 28th Amendment, apparently. Did you hear about that?
No.
Oh,
What?
You missed that one on the news?
What? What on earth?
So we're going to have the 28th Amendment from Gavin, old Newsom.
Okay.
Okay. And his 20th Amendment he wants to put in play, which he'll never get it.
Right.
He'll never get it. But he wants to, there's a list about how he's, banning assault weapons, this and that, or whatever.
Oh, banning. Yes. Banning.
And here's
gas-powered
the thing: when they say banning assault weapons like they did back in the day, they just ban everything. They'll say if this thing has a certain screw on it, that's an assault weapon.
Exactly.
Things like
Right.
that. So he's just doing to puff him up for California. Look what I'm doing. He'll never get it passed. There's no way.
All talk.
I know.
All hair gel.
I know. That's what it is. Exactly it. All hair gel. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you're doing that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we need to one of the things I do is we inform and empower because we have a lot of parents out there who you're just living your life, right? You're living your life, you're raising your kids and you don't realize the laws they are passing that are affecting your parents' rights.
There you go.
And obviously affecting your kids. We were talking earlier about the protests that we've had this week in North Hollywood and Glendale.
Oh yeah,
It's big news. It's going viral around the nation because what we saw this week was a group of parents figuratively and literally fighting back against Antifa, who was sent to kind of bolster the LGBT activists. And these were groups of parents who had gone to their elementary school to protest the fact that LGBT curriculum was being put in front of K through 5 kids. And they felt this is not appropriate. This raises issues that these kids are not developmentally ready to talk about, and it's not academically necessary.
Yeah.
And we don't want this material in our K-5. The parents, this is at Satakoy Elementary in North Hollywood, the parents there, I was at that protest. They continue to say, we are not against LGBT people. We are not against this community. We're against LAUSD forcing this curriculum down our kids' throats. And when I say curriculum, LAUSD this year rolled out a program called Queer All Year. No joke.
Okay.
And that it is infused into every possible lesson. You have the pride flags in the classrooms and the hallways, and it's offensive and appalling to a lot of parents. So we saw the parents at Satakoy pushing back and protesting this, and then they all showed up at the Glendale School Board meeting because Glendale Unified has this agenda that they're pushing this through the classrooms. And that's where the big fights broke out.
Oh, wow.
Because LGBT Antifa, they provoked everybody.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All the time.
And these are the ones that come from out of the city. These are non-parents, not locals. They
Yeah.
are the activists that you'll see over in Santa Monica or wherever. And they've come all the way out here just to make a fuss.
There you go.
And so the Armenians, who are the families that were fighting back, they've been making the news because everyone is like, oh, Antiva versus Armenians. I'll take the Armenians every day of the week.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I love everything you're doing. What I'd like to do is after some of these things, transpire,
Sure.
I'd like to bring you back on and give us an update on things
Absolutely.
because this is really, really interesting stuff. I think a lot of people out there would like to know that. I do appreciate all your efforts too to change things around.
My pleasure.
It's just fantastic. And again, thank you for coming on the show, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
All right,
I'd love to come
beautiful.
back. Thank you.
All right, everyone, that's our show. And keep in mind, you can find us on Instagram at openarms.tv. Go to our YouTube channel, Open Arms TV. Leave a comment about this show. Give us your thoughts. We'd like to hear from you. And always remember, safety, family, and the Second Amendment. Have a great day.